Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we delve into a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is March 3rd. On this day in 2021, a crime shook the UK to its core and ignited a national conversation about women's safety, trust in law enforcement, and systemic failures in protecting the public. The murder of Sarah Everard. On March 3, 2021, 33-year-old Sarah Everard disappeared while walking home in South London. What made her case particularly horrifying wasn't just the brutal and random nature of her abduction and murder, but the fact that the man responsible was a serving member of the Metropolitan Police, Wayne Couzens. Sarah did everything that society tells women to do to stay safe. She took a well-lit route, she spoke to her boyfriend on the way home, and she walked through familiar streets. And yet, she never made it home. We'll walk through Sarah's last moments, the intense investigation, Couzens' arrest, and the awful details of how he used his position of power to commit one of the most shocking crimes in modern UK history. Let's get started. Sarah Everard was a marketing executive living in the Brixton Hill area of South London. She was described by friends and family as kind, intelligent, and deeply loved. She grew up in Surrey and attended Durham University. She later moved to London for work. Those who knew her said that she was thoughtful and responsible, especially when it came to her own safety. And that's what makes what happened on the night of March 3rd, 2021, all the more terrifying. Sarah wasn't taking risks. She wasn't out late drinking. She wasn't in an unfamiliar place. She was simply walking home from a friend's house. On the evening of March 3rd, Sarah had dinner at a friend's house near Clapham Common. She left around 9 p.m., beginning her 2.5-mile walk back to Brixton. At 9:28 p.m., Sarah was still walking when she called her boyfriend, John Louth. They chatted for about 15 minutes and made plans to see each other the next day. Sarah told him that she was almost home and ended the call. At 9:34 p.m., CCTV footage captured Sarah walking along Poinders Road, a busy street near the Clapham South Station. Moments later, a white Vauxhall Astra was seen pulling up beside her. And just like that, Sarah was gone. Wayne Couzens was a 49-year-old police officer assigned to the Metropolitan Police's Diplomatic Protection Unit. His job was to guard embassies in high-profile government locations. That role gave him access to sensitive police intelligence, protective equipment, and most importantly, public trust. But on March 3rd, Couzens wasn't protecting the public. He was hunting. That night, he rented a car and went looking for a victim. Once he saw Sarah, he followed her and waited for the right moment. At 9:34 p.m., he stopped Sarah, flashed his police badge, and arrested her, claiming that she had violated COVID-19 lockdown rules. And there were witnesses. People saw a man handcuffing a woman and putting her into a car, but they thought that it was a normal, sanctioned arrest. Nobody thought anything was wrong at the time. Once Sarah was in the car, she had no way to escape. Couzens then drove 80 miles to Kent, stopping at service stations and remote locations before taking Sarah to a secluded area near Dover. It was there that he raped and murdered her before burning her body and dumping her remains in a pond near Hodes Wood. When Sarah didn't return home, her boyfriend and family immediately knew that something was wrong. On March 4th, she was officially reported missing. The Metropolitan Police launched an urgent investigation, retracing Sarah's steps using CCTV footage, mobile phone data, and forensic evidence. When investigators saw the car on the CCTV, they immediately searched for the owner. Now, the car was a rental, but they were able to find out that Wayne Couzens had rented the car and had used his police credentials to do so. When detectives checked his phone records, they found that his device had been in the same locations as Sarah's phone on the night she disappeared. Further investigation revealed that on March 4th, just a day after the murder, the same day that Sarah was reported missing, Couzens purchased 2 large builder's bags, the kind that are typically used for carrying heavy materials. Armed with this evidence, police arrested Couzens at his home in Deal, Kent on March 9th, 2021. The next day, investigators searched Hodes Wood, a remote area where Couzens' phone had been active after the abduction. That's where they found Sarah's remains inside a large green builder's bag submerged in a pond. An autopsy later confirmed that she had been strangled to death, likely with Couzens' police-issued belt. Couzens pleaded guilty to kidnapping, rape, and murder. On September 30th, 2021, he was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. In his sentencing remarks, Lord Justice Fulford called Couzens' actions, quote, a grotesque abuse of police power, end quote. He continued, quote, he used deception, force, and his position of authority to commit crimes of the most serious nature, end quote. Couzens became the first police officer in British history to receive a whole life sentence for a crime committed while serving. Sarah's murder sparked massive protests across the UK. Thousands gathered at Clapham Common for a vigil, which later turned into a standoff with police, which only fueled public anger. Later, the UK government introduced new measures for women's safety, including harsher penalties for sexual violence and increased scrutiny of police misconduct. Despite these actions, Sarah's murder left a deep scar on public trust, especially in law enforcement's ability to protect women. Sarah Everard was simply walking home when she was kidnapped and murdered by a police officer, a man who abused the trust given to him to protect the public. While her killer was caught and justice was served, her death serves as a grim reminder of the dangers that women face everywhere, every day. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found this story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe. And remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day, True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!